I was 19 when I met Daniel. It was the summer after my first year of college. I had come back home to stay with my mom. She lived in a small town near the sea, in a quiet blue house with white windows and lots of flowers. I hadn't lived there since I was 17. After my parents divorced, I moved to the city with my dad. But that summer, I wanted something slower, something peaceful. My mom was happy to have me back. She cooked for me every night, made my favorite tea, and even painted my old room again. She said it felt nice to have someone in the house again. We weren't always close when I was growing up, but that summer, something between us started to heal. I met Daniel one afternoon at the bookstore near the park. I was looking for an old poetry book, and he was standing in the same aisle. He smiled, made a small joke about how nobody reads poetry anymore, and I laughed. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. He had warm eyes, a soft voice, and a calm way of speaking. Before leaving, he asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime. I said yes. We started meeting more often after that. Coffee turned into long walks. Long walks turned into dinner. He wasn't loud or overly charming. He was gentle, thoughtful, and careful with his words. He listened. He remembered small things. He never tried too hard. And I liked that. He told me he was 29. He had moved to town 6 months ago for work. He didn't know many people. He liked books, music, and quiet places. And when he looked at me, it felt like I mattered. That feeling was new for me. We didn't call it a relationship. It was too early for that. But we spent time together. We texted every day. He picked me up from the house a few times. My mom saw him once when I was getting into his car, but she didn't ask many questions. She just smiled and waved. I didn't tell her much. I wasn't sure what to say. It was still new, and I wanted to keep it safe. But I was happy. It had been a long time since I felt that way. Then one day, everything started to change, quietly, like a door closing without sound. Daniel stopped replying as quickly. Our conversations became shorter. When we met, he seemed distracted. I asked him if something was wrong. He said no, just work stress. A week later, he canceled our dinner. Then he didn't call for 3 days. And then, he disappeared. No message. No goodbye. Nothing. I felt confused, hurt, and embarrassed. I kept checking my phone. I reread our old texts, wondering if I had done something wrong. I thought maybe he had moved, maybe something happened. But deep inside, something didn't feel right. I cried in my room without telling anyone. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my friends. I felt small and stupid for trusting someone who just vanished. But I didn't hate him. I just wanted to understand. 2 months passed. Slowly, I started to move on. I focused on helping my mom with things around the house. I applied for a small part-time job in town. Life began to feel normal again. Until one Sunday morning, my mom called me to the living room. She was smiling more than usual. "I want you to meet someone," she said. I nodded. I thought maybe she made a new friend from her book club or yoga class. She looked happy, and I was glad for her. Then I saw him, Daniel, standing in our living room, wearing a clean shirt, holding a bouquet of flowers. My breath stopped. He looked at me. His eyes changed. Not surprise, not guilt, just something flat, something unreadable. "Emma," my mom said, still smiling, "this is Daniel. We've been seeing each other for a few weeks now." She had no idea. She didn't know he was the same person. She didn't know he had dated me first. She didn't know he held my hand on the beach, kissed me under the streetlight, and promised he wasn't going anywhere. I stood there frozen. Daniel nodded at me like we were strangers. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her everything. But my voice didn't work. My body didn't move. I just smiled. A weak, shaking smile. And said, "Nice to meet you." After that moment in the living room, everything became strange. I went back to my room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of my bed. My heart was beating too fast. My hands felt cold. I stared at the wall and tried to make sense of what just happened. But nothing made sense. Nothing felt real. Daniel was dating my mom. And my mom had no idea he used to date me. She smiled when she said his name. She looked excited, happy, full of life. I hadn't seen her that way in a long time. She wore a new dress that day. She had put on lipstick. She had made breakfast for him. She liked him. And he acted like we were strangers. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I couldn't. I didn't want to break her heart. She had just started smiling again. And I knew if I told her, that smile would disappear. She would feel ashamed. She would feel betrayed. And the house would fall into silence again, the same silence we lived in after my dad left. I didn't want that. So I stayed quiet. For a few days, I avoided them both. When Daniel came to visit, I left the house. When they sat in the kitchen, laughing and drinking tea, I stayed in my room with headphones on. My mom didn't ask much. She thought I was just tired, maybe busy. I nodded and gave short answers. I tried to act normal. But inside, I was falling apart. At night, I cried quietly under my blanket. I felt like my chest was full of broken glass. Every breath hurt. Every memory burned. I remembered our first walk. Our long talks. The time he held my hand when I felt nervous. The way he looked into my eyes and said he wanted something real. I remembered how he disappeared. How I thought it was my fault. And now, I knew it wasn't. He had left me to be with her. And he didn't even tell her. That was the part one couldn't understand. Why didn't he say something? Why didn't he tell her the truth? Why didn't he tell me what happened instead of walking away? One evening, I came downstairs to grab water. They were in the living room. My mom was leaning on his shoulder. They were watching a movie. He looked up and saw me. Our eyes met. Just for a second. And in that second, I saw everything I needed to know. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't even uncomfortable. He just looked at me like nothing had ever happened between us. Like I was someone he barely knew. I turned away and went back upstairs. I felt sick. The next morning, my mom asked if I could help her pick out a dress for a dinner date. With Daniel? I asked. She smiled. Yes. He's taking me somewhere special. I nodded and went to her room. She showed me 3 dresses. I picked one without looking. She was so happy, so excited, and I felt like I was standing outside my own life, watching someone else live it. I started avoiding home. I stayed out longer, went for walks alone, sat in the park for hours, just thinking. One day, while I was sitting by the lake, my phone buzzed. It was Daniel. A message. Can we talk? I stared at the screen. My hands shook. I didn't reply. He sent another message. I didn't plan for this. I didn't expect to meet her after you. Please understand. Understand? Understand what? That he used me? That he pretended I didn't exist? That he smiled at my mother while hiding a secret this big? I didn't reply. I couldn't. That night, he came over again. I stayed in my room, like always. Later, I heard him talking to my mom in the hallway. Their voices were soft, full of warmth. She laughed. Then the door closed. I sat on my bed and finally decided. I had to tell her. I couldn't keep it inside anymore. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I deserved peace. She deserved the truth. And he didn't deserve to keep lying. The next morning, I asked her if we could go for a walk. She looked surprised but said yes. We walked in the garden behind our house. I was quiet for a while. Then I said, "Mom, I need to tell you something." She looked at me and smiled. "Of course, sweetie. What is it?" I stopped walking. My hands were cold again. I took a deep breath. Daniel and we dated. Before you met him. She froze. She blinked. I saw the smile on her face slowly fall away. "What?" she asked. "He didn't tell you?" I whispered. She looked at me like I was speaking another language. "No," she said. "That can't be true." "It is," I said. "I met him at the bookstore. We talked. Went for coffee. Walked around town. We were together. For a few weeks. Then he disappeared. And I didn't know why. Until I saw him standing in our living room. Her hand went to her mouth. She looked shocked, lost. "He never told me," she whispered. "I know," I said. She sat down on the bench. I sat beside her. For a long time, she didn't speak. Then she asked, "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because I didn't want to hurt you," I said. "You looked so happy. I didn't want to take that away." She closed her eyes. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I feel like a fool." "You're not," I said quickly. "He's the one who lied, not you." Tears filled her eyes. And suddenly, she looked small. Not like my mother, but like a woman who had been lied to, betrayed, just like I was. "I thought he was different," she said softly. "I really did." "I thought so too," I whispered. We sat there for a long time. Two women, two hearts, one man, and the silence that held us all. After we came back from the garden, my mom went straight to her room and closed the door. She didn't say anything to me that evening. She didn't come out for dinner. I didn't either. I stayed in my room, listening to the quiet sounds of the house. No TV, no footsteps, just silence. My heart felt heavy. I wanted to check on her. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what to say. I was afraid that maybe I had broken something we couldn't fix. I kept wondering, did I do the right thing by telling her? Did I wait too long? Was it too late? The next morning, I saw her in the kitchen. Her face looked pale. Her eyes were tired. I walked in slowly and said, "Hi." She looked at me for a second, then nodded. We didn't say anything else. She poured coffee. I sat down at the table. The air between us felt thick, like a wall was there. I wanted to break it, but I didn't know how. Then she said quietly, "I sent him a message last night. Told him not to come anymore." I looked at her. She wasn't crying, but I could feel the sadness in her voice. I nodded. "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "You don't have to be. I can't believe I didn't see it." I reached for her hand. She let me hold it. "I didn't know what to do," I said. "I kept it inside for so long." She nodded. "You were trying to protect me. I see that now." We sat like that for a few minutes, just holding hands, saying nothing. It felt like something between us was slowly healing. Not fast. Not completely. But a little. Later that day, I went to my room and sat by the window. I thought about everything that had happened. I remembered the first time I met Daniel. The bookstore. The coffee. The quiet walks. The messages that made me smile. The way he disappeared without a word. The day he showed up in our living room. The shock. The silence. And then I thought about my mom. How happy she looked when she spoke about him. How she had started dressing up again, smiling more, laughing at small things. She thought she had found someone who cared. We both thought that. But Daniel had fooled us both. Later in the evening, there was a knock at the door. I opened it. It was him. Daniel. I stood in the doorway, not saying anything. He looked at me. Emma, please. Just 5 minutes. I didn't move. Please, he said again. I just need to explain. I looked back into the house. My mom was in the living room. She heard his voice and came to the door. Her face changed when she saw him. I told you not to come, she said firmly. I know, he said. But I had to say something. She stepped outside. I followed her. He looked at both of us. He looked tired. I'm sorry, he said. To both of you. I didn't plan this. I met Emma first, yes. I liked her. But I got scared. I left without saying anything. And then I met you. He looked at my mom. I didn't know at first, he continued, that you were her mom. Not until I saw the picture on the shelf. By then, I didn't know how to say it. You could have told me, she said. Her voice was calm but cold. You told us nothing. He looked down. I didn't want to lose both of you, he said softly. But you did, I said. He looked at me. You lost us the moment you chose silence. He nodded. I know, he said. And I'm sorry. I was weak. I thought I could hide it. But I was wrong. My mom looked at him. Her face was unreadable. Leave, she said. We don't need more words. He hesitated, then turned and walked away. We watched him leave. We didn't speak. We just stood there until his car disappeared down the road. That night, my mom and I made dinner together. We didn't talk about him. We chopped vegetables, stirred the soup, and set the table like we used to. There was still sadness, still pain, but also something else, peace. We didn't have him anymore, but we had each other, and that mattered more. Life after Daniel didn't go back to normal right away, but it got quieter. And quiet, after everything, felt like a kind of healing. My mom and I didn't talk about him much anymore. Not because we were ignoring what happened, but because we both needed space from it. The truth was already there, between us. We didn't need to say it over and over. We started doing small things together again. Cooking dinner, going for walks, watching movies on weekends. Sometimes we would sit in silence, each lost in thought, but the silence didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt gentle, safe. One evening, she brought out an old photo album. She placed it on the coffee table and looked at me. "Want to go through it?" she asked. I nodded. We sat down and opened it together. There were pictures from when I was a baby, photos from birthdays, holidays, school events. My dad was in some of them, smiling with his arm around us. My mom's hair was longer back then. She looked younger, lighter. We stopped at one picture where I was about 5 years old, wearing a crown made of paper. My mom was laughing beside me, holding a small cake. The image was blurry, but our smiles were clear. She touched the photo lightly and said, "We were so happy that day. Just the two of us." I nodded. "You gave me everything I needed." She smiled. I tried. I leaned my head on her shoulder. We didn't talk after that. We just turned the pages slowly, remembering better times. That night, I stayed up a little later than usual. I lay in bed thinking about everything. About how something that started as a quiet summer romance turned into something that tested our family in ways I couldn't imagine. And yet, we were still here. Still whole, even with the cracks. I also thought about Daniel. About the time we shared. The words he said. The way he made me feel in the beginning. I wondered if any of it was real. If he meant what he said. If he ever really cared. But I stopped myself. Because those questions had no answers. And even if they did, they wouldn't change anything. He was a chapter. A painful one. But not the whole book. One morning, I got a message on my phone. It was from him. "I'm moving to another city. Just wanted to say goodbye. I'm sorry, Emma. Truly." I stared at the message for a few seconds. Then I deleted it. Not out of anger, but because I didn't need it anymore. He had taken up enough space in my heart. It was time to let go. A week later, my mom and I went to the beach. It was a quiet afternoon. The sky was light gray and the water was calm. We walked near the shore, barefoot, letting the waves touch our feet. "I'm proud of you," she said. I looked at her. For what? For being strong. For telling me the truth. For not letting it break you. I smiled a little. "I didn't feel strong." "But you were," she said. "You still are." We sat down on the sand and watched the ocean for a long time. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner," she added. "It wasn't your fault," I said. "He didn't want us to see it." She nodded. "I know. But still." I placed my hand over hers. "We're okay now. That's what matters." She squeezed my hand gently. In that moment, I realized something important. Pain doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from people who once made you feel safe. And healing doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it's just sitting in silence with someone you love, knowing that you both made it through. When we got back home, I went to my room and opened my journal. I wrote, "He hurt me. He hurt us. But he didn't win. Because love, real love, doesn't lie. It doesn't hide. And the love I share with my mom, that's real. That's what stayed." That's what I'll keep. Months passed. My mom started smiling more again. She joined a painting class, met new people, laughed at silly TV shows. She didn't talk about dating for a long time. I think she needed time to trust again. And me? I went back to school. I studied harder, focused more. I made new friends. I even started writing short stories, one of which I shared with my professor. He said I had a gift for telling the truth through fiction. I guess sometimes the truth is what hurts the most, and also what sets you free. I don't think about Daniel much now. He became a part of my past. A lesson, not a person. And I think that's what healing really is. Not forgetting. Not pretending it didn't happen. But accepting the truth, learning from it, and walking forward anyway. Even if your steps are slow. Even if your heart is still sore. You keep walking. And you don't walk alone. You walk with the people who stayed. You walk with yourself. And that's enough.